For me, the bet though, I would put, and I will put some money on both South Africa and England at 9-2 to win the tournament, because it offers great value. And to me, the two favourites should be South Africa and England, not the All Blacks.
No, I agree on form, and if you look at the form in the last 2 years especially, and you'd have to put Wales up there, but there's just something that, and maybe it's just a prejudice, when I look at their Wales side and I think...
Are you racist against Welsh people?
Huh? Or just culturally challenged. But it's a bit like when you look at a side and they keep on winning and you think they're not really that good, but they actually are, and they've become better, and their players become better. And I think maybe it's because they've had this block whenever they've played the All Blacks. But to knock over England the way they did, to win the Six Nations the way they did, to kind of dismantle Australia the way they did, they've had the wood on South Africa for the last 4 years.
And would they dismantle Ireland in the Six Nations?
And Gatlin has done something with them. You know, he's brought a hardened edge. Their conditioning is there. I would love to see Wales go very far in the tournament. I think, as you know, World Rugby needs a strong Springboks, but my goodness, the Romantics need a strong Wales. And so the Welsh teams from the 70s, the Springbok teams from the 70s, All Black teams, you'd love to see them in the mix at the end. And if there's one team I would love to not see there, it's Australia. My God, how do they always get there? You know, somehow they stumble and fumble their way through to a playoff, and then they put together a technical game that somehow gets them there. So in an ideal world, I'd love to see, and I don't know if it's possible with the draw, but I'd love to see South Africa, Wales, New Zealand, and England in the semi-final. I think that would be indicative of the strongest 4 teams in World Rugby, and it would make for a cracking playoffs.
As long as Wales got to play New Zealand, because I think that's the weakest of the 3 teams.
No, without a doubt. What they say when Wales plays New Zealand, it's New Zealand A against New Zealand B.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. No, it should be quite a tournament. I don't know how many people are going, but also Japan is probably a great. Sorry.
Rassie.
Yeah.
But if you, Keo, if you just look at, and you spoke about what Rassie's brought to the team, and the chaos that there was in the last World Cup, with Heineke lost the plot completely in that last year.
Is Rassie capable of losing the plot? The green blazer fever, we call it.
No, I think because he may lose the plot further down the line when there is success. He doesn't quite know how to deal with it. No. And then what tends to happen is the coaches don't back the simplicity of their plan and start tinkering with the winning formula, thinking they've got to do something more, and they kind of lose it then, and then people get into their heads, or they don't want to listen to their advisors and those who are kind of their soundboard. But if you look at England and Lancaster, how he lost the plot and they blew up, Eddie Jones came in and he fixed them, and they had their dip, and he's really built a strong squad, and they do go there as one of the favourites. Rassie has fixed South Africa, and they do go there as one of the favourites. Gatlin, over a period of time, has really transformed that Welsh team. The minute Smith announced his departure, Ireland haven't been the same. He's given the reins over to Farrell. He's kind of there now as an advisory capacity, and the players know that. So a good coach makes a hell of a difference. Shane Warne, in the cricketing terms, used to say, a coach is the thing that takes the players to the ground. He doesn't believe in them. But in a rugby context, I've seen some very good teams with a poor coach go nowhere, and I've seen some pretty hard-working, limited players gel and mold as a team and win some big tournaments with a very good coach. And I think if you look at those top 4 teams that we spoke about, they have the top 4 coaches there. And I exclude Smith because he's kind of like taken a back step. But I think those are the 4 best coaches in world rugby.
Yeah. And how much of an advantage? Because to me, it'll come down to condition. A lot will come down to conditioning. So who is the best out of those? I don't even see Ireland as getting anywhere. So to me, there's 4 contenders in order of England, South Africa, New Zealand, and Wales. Yeah. Those are the teams that can lift that trophy.
We agree on that. Yeah.
How much of an advantage is it having Eddie Jones as your coach, having coached the Japanese team? So I imagine he's well aware of the conditions they'll be in Japan. He speaks Japanese, I believe.
Yeah, and he's married to a Japanese woman. So, look, the thing that Eddie Jones spoke about this last year with his England team, and when they lost in Dublin, and then they lost at Twickenham, he doubted their mental edge. Because he said if that was the World Cup, we were on our way home. So I don't doubt the caliber of player he's put together. It's a bloody good side. Good depth. If they lose Vunipola, though, they do lose something.
Yeah.
I just find that their 1 and 2 in some positions are radical differences. If Owen Farrell's not there, it's a very different side. So it will be the mental state of the English, but also their media expectation, because their media can write you up in a day and really destroy you the very next day. Wales, for me, it would come down to, do they honestly have that self-belief once they go past the quarterfinals to win the tournament? And I think the two teams that have been there before and done it 5 times combined, Australia, South Africa and New Zealand. There's a lot to be said for the potential of the opening game to be the final as well. And I think there's a lot of people in the world.
You mean Japan, Russia?
The tier 1 is for that to be the final, and that's what makes that opening game so great as well, because both teams can put it all on the line and still have a future in the tournament. And it's the best draw South Africa could have got 4 years ago, and I think New Zealand will fancy it as the best draw they could have had now, given how the fortunate two teams have changed.
It's not life or death.
No, it's not life or death. And I think that pressure's off both teams.
I think losing that, and if Ireland win their group, playing Ireland is the easiest draw that you could have.
Well, I remember
and I've been saying this for a long time, for some time. Ireland, Ireland doesn't have the depth. Which team do you think has the most depth going into this tournament?
England go there as a lot stacked in their favour. Yeah. Then followed by, in 23, it's followed by South Africa, New Zealand, and then Wales. I look at that New Zealand pack, and I think it's the most vulnerable pack I've seen in 3 World Cups. Yeah.
I think for my lifetime, touch wood, they're always going to be someone talked about as the tournament favourite. In fact, when's the last time they weren't tournament favourites? Probably in 2003.
If I look at that 99 tournament and how poor their form was leading up to that, that was the one they shouldn't have been favourites, and somehow they got to that semi-final, but they weren't good enough. Australia would have beaten them. Australia beaten them in Sydney by 20 points going into the World Cup. Yeah. Australia were the best team in the world, and we were hanging in there as a close second at that stage. It wouldn't surprise us if either of the 4 won it. Where in the past it's like, how the hell did New Zealand not win it? They've choked or whatever. I don't think any team here can be accused of choking, because if the one team beats the other, it's because they're better on the day. Yeah. There's just one score between these teams.
And who do you think is the best conditioned team going to that tournament? Not that you have that insight, but I mean, you have a bit more insight than I do on it.
There's, that thing used to be, if you can stay with the All Blacks for 60, then you've got a chance, but they'll blow you away in the last 20. I think it's a combination. They're all equally conditioned, but who has the best bench? And New Zealand in 2015, when you had Sonny Bill Williams and Beauden Barrett coming off the bench and Sam Cane coming off the bench, that's why they were so good in the last 20 minutes. I think we've got a good bench. I like the bench of England as well. I think that could be defining in the tournament. When it gets down to those last 15 minutes, both sides are well conditioned. You're a better player than I am, and they bring you on. That's where the edge will come. We have got that right through Russ's selections, that he's built a very capable 23, but he hasn't built it as a 15 with reserves. He's built it as a 23, and how does he integrate them into an 80-minute game? Japan.
Tell me about the conditions that the teams are going to experience in Japan.
Yeah, it's going to be very dry, but humid as well.
What temperatures?
I think in the mid to late 20s. But the humidity is something that I think some boys are going to lose a lot of weight in those first few games, just through water loss. And you speak to the South African players who play regularly in Japan, just in the domestic leagues. They've all come back 5-6 kilograms lighter. It's a very fast-paced domestic game in that. And I found very interesting was Steve Hansen's comments that Owen Franks, the game has passed him by. And he saw that in the Rugby Championship. And where they're going to, they need mobility in their props. They don't just need a strong anchor at 3. That's a 108 test veteran.
Is that a bigger mission?
It's a bigger mission on the surface, but very telling in why he's been omitted, which tells me they're going to play a very different game than what we've seen in the Rugby Championship.
Well, I would hope so if they're going to win the World Cup, because there wasn't much in the rugby, in the championship to show me that they are the team, that they're going to win it. I mean, they were shut out in various halves of games. In terms of not scoring any points. They didn't look convincing. I mean, they're beaten by the Australians. I mean, who beat them?
and got beaten badly, conceded 47 points. Admittedly, they got 36 the next week, but I think that was desperation stuff just to keep that Bledisloe Cup.
Yeah, and it was also in New Zealand. I mean, you know, these exhibition build-ups, like Ireland are playing Wales this weekend at the Millennium Stadium, and I don't know why. I mean, I wouldn't. If I was a player, I wouldn't want to be playing that game.
Yeah, I mean, all that can happen is that you don't get on the play because of an injury. And if I've looked at and I've been more interested in those matches than I actually have with the Rugby Championship because there's still a title at stake and guys were playing for World Cup positions. It's a bit like cricket World Cup warm-ups. If you look at we were destroying everyone in those warm-ups. So yeah, but I do love the vibe that's around this World Cup, and I think another influential thing is going to be that it's on for the top 6 teams, top 8 teams. It's on neutral territory. There is no familiarity about playing in Japan. From a cultural perspective, being there as a tourist, from the playing kind of conditions, from the kind of crowd, because there'll be a big Japanese contingent in every crowd. So who's the home ground favorite? There's not really going to be one when it comes to the teams outside of Japan.
I would imagine the South Africans will be well cheered for.
They will be, and interesting. Did a breakfast a couple of weeks ago, and Keohane was one of the guest speakers, and he's been playing in Japan for the last 2 years. And he was asked that question, outside of Japan, who will the Japanese cheer for? And they said New Zealand because of AIG. And that New Zealand have been over there and done the whole campaign. So he said you walk into every store, you get 2 jerseys. It's the Japanese and the All Black jersey. He said, but the Japanese love a winner. He said, when the Springboks knock New Zealand over, the loyalties will go straight to the Springboks for the rest of the tournament. But he says the South African players are very popular over there in the domestic leagues, and the Springboks will always have a special place in the hearts of the Japanese because of losing to them at the last World Cup. So, and being gracious after that as well. So what I do like is we are going to this World Cup as a celebrated team, a popular team, and a likable team, and a very talented team. In 2015, regardless of the players we had, we went there back in the lager. We went there as everyone attacking us, paranoia. The world was just happy to eventually see us go out of that tournament, you know. Rassi's done a lot of good things, and Sia's done good things, and Dwayne and Eben have come in and led that team. Exciting times, eh? Yeah. And it's going to be a wonderful next 6 to 8 weeks of rugby.
Yeah, let's not get overly charged if we don't win the first game. I hope we don't. I hope we play Ireland in the quarters.
Well, I don't know. I'd prefer to play Japan.
That's the one team that can throw a spanner into that top 8, I think. On their day, they could beat Scotland. I mean, I know it's unlikely, but...
You mean the World 15 that's playing for Japan?
They'll be used to those conditions, one. You know, there'll be an expectation for them to do well.
Well, the big game for them is going to be against Scotland. And I think if you look at just over the last 3 or 4 years, Ireland's form to Scotland's form, Japan will feel if they can knock over one of those two, it's going to be Scotland.
Well, Scotland should have been in the semi-final of the last World Cup.
And somehow Australia got there thanks to Craig Joubert.
I know, eh? There'll be many pundits and many experts coming out of the woodwork talking this and that, but I mean, each game, when you get to the quarterfinals, every one of those games could go either way.
With a little bit of luck, a red card, the odd decision, there would be no surprise for anyone there to win or to lose.
Yeah. Well, let's look forward to a great World Cup, and thanks for coming in and chatting to me.
Always a pleasure.
Cheers, bye.